After sitting for over a year, it's time to figure out what to do with this thing. Welcome back to the Lost Cause Ranch! Many of you will remember this guy behind me. When we purchased this guy over 5 years ago, this was the highest mileage V10 twin turbo diesel Volkswagen Touareg in the country. It's not anymore because it's been sitting. But over 500,000 of you have viewed videos on this, including us dropping that big V10 out. There it is. To straight pipe it and tune it. But after a long slumber, it is now time to figure out what is in store for the Touareg's future. And this 2007 Touareg is the next for an update in the Lost Cause projects. I don't know, it'd look mighty cool with some 35s on it. Maybe? I have a serious love-hate relationship with this Touareg. When this thing is working correctly, there is nothing else like it on the road to drive. With the custom turbo back exhaust and the tune, it is at nearly 700 pound-feet of torque and is a freaking steamroller. And if you haven't experienced an air ride first-gen Touareg, they soak up the road very nicely and are a pleasure to drive. The problem with this one and many other V10 Touaregs, it's not too often it's working without issue. And on that love-hate relationship, the last time I had this thing out, we were in the hate part of the relationship, and the Touareg did not fare too well. And beyond the body damage, we hurt the transmission. Reverse is not too happy after its little joyride through the woods. Before we even did that though, I made up my mind that this Touareg is not staying in one piece. Otherwise we wouldn't have destroyed it. Like many Touaregs of this era, it has constant electrical issues. And with all the other neat projects here at the ranch, I have zero desire to chase those electrical issues down every other month. When I first got this, it was one of my daily drivers, but that has since been replaced by what I deem a much better vehicle for that purpose, the Budget Overland LR4. So the V10 Touareg in its current state has kind of lost its place in the home of the Lost Cause Ranch. Currently all it's being used for is to house various 109 Nada parts, so it's at least useful for that. And my fender roller, because stance life. So I think ultimately the Touareg is going to end up just like the Risco Disco. I mean, we'll probably leave the roof on and snag a couple more parts than we were able to off of the Risco Disco, because there is still some nice pieces on that poor thing that could go to someone who needs them. But I have two options what I want to do with mainly the V10 part of the Touareg. Let's go inside and discuss those, because I would like your opinion on the matter. And we're gonna need this at the end of the video. Remember the Mercedes top hydraulics I mentioned in the last video? There's the current situation. We're also gonna need this. So back to the Risco Disco teardown video. At the end of this video, we'll figure out which one of you is getting the key. Then our big Volkswagen emblem, Flava Flav style. One of you has the opportunity to get this, and all we're looking for is a comment on what we should do with the Touareg. It can be one of the options that I'm gonna lay out here in just a minute, or anything else your imagination can come up with. I'm pretty open to figuring out what to do with the V10 out of that thing. Which brings us back to why we're even messing with the Touareg at this point. A lot of you know last year we sold the commercial shop, and I need to clear out a bunch of the stuff that's laying around. It just got out of hand. Even after selling off our normal stock of vehicles, Ted and I were left with more than 20 of them, mainly Land Rovers. And frankly, that's just a few too many laying around with the available space I have. I'd like to pare it down to a few core good projects around. I mean, a dozen seems like a decent number. I'd rather narrow down and focus on a few. And those core ones are obviously the LS3 Defender, the Eco Challenge, the LR4, the Nada, Range Rover camper, and we still have the G4 that needs to come back to life. So the first one gone, out of the way, was obviously the Risco Disco. Well, almost out of the way. We're just waiting for a little less mud so we can drag that thing and scrap it out. The next one is going to be the Touareg. Trying to make my house not look like a junkyard. So we are going to snatch that 5-liter V10 twin turbo diesel out of that thing for a future project. But right now, bouncing around in my head, I have two options to make something neat out of that V10. We could do like a KOH Ultra 4 style tube buggy with the V10 sitting out back. Kind of a wicked, big power off-road machine. In my mind, something similar to this. That would be neat. But then I go back to project overlap. Between Ted and I, we have plenty of Land Rovers that'll cover the off-road segment in our lives. So would adding another off-road vehicle build be the smartest use of time? Which leads to something that has been brewing in my head for a bit with this thing laying around. So one year back in my late teens watching the 24 Hours Le Mans, there was a low grumble that took the race by storm, and it was the Audi R10 LMP car. I think a budget version of that would be the ticket. I mean, there's some similarities. That was a V12 5.5 liter TDI engine. I have a V10 5 liter. Pretty much the same thing. Not too long ago, I ran across this on Facebook. That's a Lotus Elise. That could be a good start to making my own Wish version of the Audi R10. It's basically the same chassis that Hennessy used for the Venom GT. They stretched a Lotus Elise. We could do the same thing if we found a wrecked one. But I really think the ticket would be starting with a super light SLC. That's a kit car. I believe they're out of Michigan. We wouldn't be the first one to build one of those. Good chance Barry would be the first one to throw a V10 diesel in it. And I think that would be a fun project to tackle. Obviously, we need to get the LS3 Defender and the Nada done first. So this isn't happening next week. But I'd love to hear your opinion. The SLC kit is kind of an expensive endeavor. Pricing that, the base kit comes to a little over $50,000, but those appear to be a pretty complete kit, and I think the final product would end up being well worth the investment. A street legal Audi prototype inspired vehicle. Heavy on the inspired because I don't have that kind of development money. Maybe we could somehow back that V10 with the new dual clutch transaxle from a C8 Corvette. Or we could just keep it old school mechanical and use a Cayman 6-speed if that was strong enough to not blow up with north of 700 pound-feet of torque. And obviously we would be able to play with turbo options on the V10 if we are not packaged in a Touareg, although it doesn't need anything bigger, especially if you went lighter. But those are just the thoughts bouncing around my head. So if you'd like this guy, let me know down below what you think should be done with that V10 out of the Touareg, Audi LMP knockoff, or whatever else you can think of. And let's see who gets this. Looks like Andy Wilson is going to have a piece of Risco Disco history. Treat it nicely. But there is just an inside look of what bounces around inside Joe's head every day on what I should do with stuff laying around here. I'm just trying to get a little future plan so we can start collecting parts, so we can keep cars moving through here. For the last 15 years of my life running the repair shop, all our personal projects got pushed to the side in favor of customer work, and I'm trying to change that. That being said, we will catch you on the next one. Appreciate you guys watching, appreciate you subscribing, and have yourself a good night. We got Sasha napping at the window. Oh, good morning. Wake up. She likes to hang out underneath Honey. Sneak peek on the little garage. We are rearranging a few things to try and make some room for something I just purchased.